When I show you this image, what is the first thing you think of? Does this maybe bring upon some sort of anger? This image single-handedly made the internet very mad. They were just kind of teasing the audience. Gen Z boss in a mini! Gen Z boss in a mini! There's this video I want to watch. It's called Why Everyone Hates This Video.
In July 2024, a silly TikTok trend occurred of women making little hype videos about themselves. This trend began with a video of some women doing a little song and dance about what they were wearing on a night out.
Boots and slick back bun. Boots and slick back bun.
Okay.
Cowboy boots and a blowy. Cowboy boots and a blowy. Sam's in a little red bag. Sam was in a little red bag.
All pretty frivolous.
It's so interesting because that is infinitely better and more tolerable than the Gen Z boss in a mini TikTok. I don't know what it is, but something about that TikTok and the fact that it's like in a corporate environment, that it's in the office, that is so much worse. I think it's because they've done what Mr. Beast does to viral trends. When Mr. Beast sees a viral meme and then slaps his tiger logo on it and he does a parody of it with his Twitter account or makes it in some way about his brand, it is so bad. Whenever Wendy's tweets out like, when I whip in Nene, Despacito, you know, KFC says some shit like, oh,
Stop.
you know, I don't know how to explain it. Whenever someone with more corporate power or in an office environment tries to appropriate like the raw, natural fun of people and nature, I don't like. I think it makes it worse.
Harmless stuff, and many other groups of young women jumped in on the trend, and nobody cared about this until the young women at a small Australian startup
Branded brain rot is peak. Branded brain rot is the worst thing that's happened since the Black Plague.
TBH Skincare decided to jump on the trend as well to promote their product, and somehow they managed to create a video that drove everyone mad with rage. Here it is.
Gen Z boss in a mini, Gen Z boss in a mini, itty bitty titties in a ball, itty bitty titties in a ball, 5'3" and an attitude, 5'3" and an attitude.
Okay, so when people want to know why this pisses me off so much, it's because it's one of the few TikTok videos where you can do this little game that I like to play called pause anytime throughout the video and try not to pull a gun on your own face. And the challenge is really hard, you'll notice. Any person in this video, any frame in this video, you pause it and you get mad. MFs get pissed over anything these days. I'm MFs! I'm MFs!
Gen Z boss in a mini,
I'm like, pause.
itty bitty titties in a ball, itty bitty titties in a ball, 5'3" and an attitude.
This is the bread that you asked me to get, and you can now go make me a sandwich.
And they're gonna say, whoa, why are you so mad? Why are you so mad? Bro, I'm mad and everyone else is, okay? I'm the voice of the comments that are saying TSPMO, ICL, heartbreak emoji. It's something about the fact that I think when we're young, and a lot of us Gen Zers are now reaching adulthood, we were given the impression that the corporate world and working was actually like a serious thing, when nowadays, and that's ironic, right? I mean, because now like I do something very unserious for my job. Like I am basically like a slop demon and I get paid to do it. I have no position to speak on this. You know, remove me from my opinion that I'm about to voice. Take it from the thousands of comments that are calling this video hogwash and understand that the reason they're calling it hogwash is for the reason that I'm about to give you. And it's the fact that when you were younger, you had to look at men in suits and ties getting angry and talking about the stock market, and there was a perception of authority and certainty and organization in the workforce that has now been completely erased, and everything is super unserious. Everything that is involving, you know, corporate decision making and work is now being parodied and like made into like a bunch of silliness. Okay, these are like the CEOs of goofiness. They run a company, but it's just like, it's complete fairy tale nonsense. It's like Alice in Wonderland, but in the world of marketing and distribution or whatever the fuck. And I think that's what's making people upset, because we're just reaching adulthood and we're watching people just completely take what we had the impression of, you know, complete seriousness. We thought this mattered, and they're just like, I'm dancing and it's TikTok. Renegade. These people, they have control over us, and they're Fortnite emoting in a time period where people can't get jobs and can't get groceries. We're looking at a bunch of clowns in the circus who are getting their fucking paychecks, right? So you're mad because they're having more fun than you. Basically, yeah, actually, yeah. And I personally would be very upset if I was in a position where I'm basically me fresh out of college, a CS major who somehow got out of college not wanting to jump off a bridge, and I have a degree that doesn't get me a job because of the way that the economy is fucking me in the ass, doggy style. Simultaneously, I've racked up student debt through the roof. I can't afford groceries. I have to like consult a higher power before I place a DoorDash order. Yo, censor job, it's triggering. Sorry, I'll put trigger warning job, trigger warning employment. When they have fun and I don't. It's not just the fact that they're having fun. It's the fact that they're emoting and Fortniting it and letting us all know how much fun they're having. I think it's the fact, and I am bitter, and I am jaded, and I am, you know, salty. It's not that serious, right? People are gonna say it's not that serious, and I don't think it is, but I also do think it is, if that makes sense. I don't know. Like, fundamentally, do I care about this? Not really. But when you're watching the video, and if you're actually gonna spend time to dissect why people fucking hate it, then yeah, I do.
Secret product of the trench. New friend green and a sneaky link.
I also think that I have sort of a paranoia and trauma from stories that my friends have told me where it's these overly happy-go-lucky, cheery, always smiling at work, dancing around like a Lucky Charms kind of like. These are the people who will also fire you even though you're like a single father who gets custody of his kids 2 times a week. Like if you're at this job and you didn't meet the quarterly earnings by like $1, they're going to tell you, hey, so get out, you know, trust me.
New friend green and a sneaky link. Fake 10 hands in a hoop. Fake 10 hands in a hoop.
It seems that this video went insanely viral, primarily because of the emotional damage it seems to have done to everyone everywhere. The sheer volume and intensity of the response to this video was remarkable.
Maybe I'm intellectually disabled. There's no room for me to be unserious or fuck up or else I lose my job, while it seems others can just do what they want and nothing happens. Basically, people are feeling that way, but I think it's gonna be also teenage boys who are maybe 15, 16, 17, whose fathers are having a hard time at work, or, you know, they're maybe treading water in this absolutely brutal economy. And so when, for most people, there's like a reality of work that has real consequences of eating or not eating, paying rent or not paying rent, and then you, as the son of a dad who's dealing with this, go on TikTok and you see this, like, obviously it's gonna frustrate you. And you could say it's envy, you could say it's jealousy, but I think it's also, when you actually look at why it's that way, you're not like, oh, okay, that's like an insane reaction, right?
There's no way, there's no way, there's no way. Say you swear to God. Say you swear to God. Put that on Allah. Say, put that on Allah. Say wallahi, bro. Say wallahi.
Every time it pops up on my timeline, I find myself watching it repeatedly to try and figure out just what about it makes it so detestable.
Right.
For I, too, am only human, and I also found this to be completely insufferable. But it seems to be quite difficult to pin down exactly why everyone hates it so much. On the surface, it seems quite unreasonable to have such a strong reaction to a TikTok trend video made by a small women's skincare company, which was just doing...
It's like, it's not about them. Like, it's really not about these individual people. It's the TikTok itself. It's the way that they're moving. It's when they're posting it. It's what they're copying. It's where they are when they record it. It's just the whole package is what's really bad. When there's a steaming pile of dog shit in front of you that smells really bad, you're not thinking of the pizza that the dog ate to produce this shit. You know, it's not the individual people. It's the overall fact that the video, like a pile of dog shit, is a pile of dog shit.
Marketing products for women to women using a trend made by and for women. Clearly, though, this struck a note which resonated.
To be honest, people don't deserve hate, it's just cringe. Well, I don't think they're individually getting hate. I just don't think that's what's happening. I don't think these people or their company probably suffered at all. I mean, if anything, this is like a dream come true from a marketing standpoint. It's like the most viral shit ever. I didn't even know what they did. Now I know that they're like, they sell skincare, right? So in terms of who gets the last laugh, it's absolutely them. You know, people like me and people talking about this shit, they get absolutely nothing from it
than this superficial analysis would indicate. On the surface, it's easy to say that the trend itself was insufferable because it was so self-absorbed. Women getting around and hyping themselves is actually not an admirable thing to do, and it reveals a kind of perennial insecurity in the modern woman which itself is not respectable. It makes them look like overgrown teenagers who don't know how to comport themselves in an adult environment. But this is a new startup run by young women, and they have created an office environment with which they are comfortable and can have fun in a particularly feminine way, which clearly shows in the video. So it really ought not to have been such a big deal. It's one thing having a bunch of silly girls being self-obsessed in isolation, but there's a wider social context in which this was produced, and one that has been generating a great deal of resentment.
Right.
I don't think it's unfair to say that modern feminism has deeply impacted corporate culture,
Right.
not only in deliberate affirmative action programs for women, but also in an unconscious bias in favour of women, which makes it evident that men are being actively discriminated against in the workplace.
I think that basically what you look at is when you talk about unconscious bias and a double standard, I think what oftentimes you do when you look at that is the guys who are getting mad at are doing, they're viewing that and they're thinking like, I could never show up to a job with my friends where we dance around and recreate a TikTok trend on company time and be applauded for it, and it be something that was good. And I think that's probably what's frustrating as well, is the double standard is basically that, like, you know, in this all-female work environment, they can kind of fuck around and recreate TikToks and whatever, and it's sort of completely normalized. And I think that's what's frustrating. Feminism was good when aiming for civil rights and focusing on women, not focusing on hating men. Well, I think that to be fair to feminism, like, it's been completely hijacked. Like, feminism and man hatred, you can't say feminism was good until it was man hatred. Well, man hatred, I don't think is feminism. I don't think it's inherently feminist to hate men. I think it's actually anti-feminist to hate men at all. You know, people want to talk about, like, when did feminism stop being good? And then they say, well, that's when they started hating men. And I think a lot of the people who hate men are just not feminists, you know? Like, that's what I think, at least. Maybe they'll call themselves feminists and they're actually hurting their cause, but I think it's a cover.
This is not a new phenomenon. Take, for example, one data analysis done in 2016 by recruitment firm MoveMeOn.com. After analysing 20,000 applications,
oh wow,
they found that women were 35% more likely to be hired for a job than a man.
This is basically what I was saying earlier, like the I could never. Like, if women are more likely to get hired, and then they can also do this stuff while at work, men are just like, I could never. And it almost feels like, we have a job, you don't, we can dance and you don't. That's essentially, I believe, the conclusion and the resentment that this video generated, summarized in a way that I think it honestly isn't even hating the video. I'm sort of just describing why I think people hate the video. That's what I think. I think I've just described it.
As one might expect, this is having a severe detrimental effect on the motivation of young men. Bloomberg News analysed US government data which revealed that a fifth of young educated men were not employed and not looking for work.
Yeah.
As one young man put it, "It feels kind of delusional now, but I was thinking I could get a $100,000 a year job." But after applying to about 500 jobs, he became discouraged. When I was at the point where I didn't even have one interview for anything, I was like, oh my god, I feel like a failure right now.
Right.
It definitely messed with my mental health.
Yeah.
There is a particular difference in the way that modern society is calibrated to help one of the sexes and marginalize the other. If there is a plague of young men staring at the 500th rejected job application and feeling at their wits' end and not knowing what to do, and then there's a video of 5 frivolous women apparently wasting time in an office instead of actually working.
I mean, ironically enough, it does come across as a time waster, but if you look at the outcome of this video, you're looking at, I would assume, millions of views and a lot of people that are talking about this, which is, you know, the dream outcome of an advertisement, because at the end of the day, this is an advertisement. And so even though you can look at it as they're wasting time, there's nothing else they could do in this day that would have been time better spent. This is the most viral thing and the highest amount of exposure the company's ever got. But in the sense that not everyone will have this outcome if they do a video like this in the corporate world, then it is a waste of time, because the only reason this wasn't a waste of time is because it went viral. You're like, as they were doing it, they were wasting time, right? So then the algorithm picked up and then they got lucky.
Well, that might well feel like a slap in the face. What I'm saying is that a fair left-wing analysis of this situation might conclude that young women have a privilege that the men don't have, And the fact that they can be so cavalier with their time and output seems to show it. Indeed, the women in the TBH skincare video put out a sequel video mocking the comments that they received online, and it seemed to underscore this point in particular. The insults or despair shown regarding their video had made no impact on them, and they just laughed at it because, from their perspective, their careers and social status are unassailable.
Gender pay gap, bring it back! Gender pay gap, bring it back! It's giving millennial core! It's giving millennial core! Women should go back to the kitchen! Women should go back to the kitchen! Try not to cringe, impossible! Try not to cringe, impossible! Make it stop!
Like...
Try not to cringe, impossible!
Oh my god.
Try not to cringe, impossible!
It's just, it is impossible. It's literally impossible.
Women should go back to the kitchen! Try not to cringe, impossible! Try not to cringe, impossible! Make it stop! Hate this! Make it stop! Hate this!
Not a single computer is turned on. Like, this is like, like...
They know they aren't going anywhere. So why not just laugh at the losers on the internet,
Right.
who are still firing off CVs as if they've got a hope in hell of ever being recruited by someone? The few people who attempted to defend the TBH skincare video would say things like, oh, it's just girls having fun, lighten up, as if this were to just evaporate the concerns that people have about this, but instead it opens up a new can of worms. As I said previously, it's not evident that these women were selling trivial skincare products, and this attitude probably isn't the best one to foster for women in a professional environment, especially when it comes to women doing jobs which are actually important. You may remember in February this year that a Delta/Endeavour airplane crashed on landing in Toronto. It seems
I don't
that the
remember
plane
this,
did not
actually.
suffer a mechanical fault, but instead it was a
Oh wait, no,
pilot
this is
error.
the plane that flipped over. I think people lived here and they were paid out like over 100K each. I mean, thank God they lived. I didn't even know that you could like crash a plane and flip it over and people would live, let alone everyone on board lived.
From the first officer,
Which is insane.
that caused it to flip over before coming to rest, and it was a miracle that nobody was killed. Though Endeavour Air have not yet made any official announcements about who the first officer was, rumours quickly began to circulate and internet sleuths began to dig, and they came to the conclusion that the first officer was 26-year-old Kendall Swanson, who apparently scrubbed...
That's so awkward, bro. Imagine. Let's just juxtapose these. Hi, I'm the pilot. Womp womp.
First officer was 26-year-old Kendall Swanson, who apparently scrubbed her social media shortly after the accident. And it
boy.
seems that Endeavour Air operate a feminist affirmative action program for their pilots, which means that now more than half of their pilots are women.
Explain how you filled an airplane pilot training class with over 50% females when only 6% of applicants are female. Then one of them crashes the plane in Toronto.
Is this all correct? I have no idea. But after taking a brief look at Endeavour Air's TikTok account, I could bloody well believe it.
Girls,
Endeavour Air, bro.
come on. Leave the
Like, this is what I'm saying, bro. This is my point. Whenever corporations, especially ones that are, I'd say, more serious in nature and less like about like cosmetics or entertainment or anything, if they provided an essential service like a pilot, I think it's completely lacking any sort of like skill to read the room if you're gonna fucking make a TikTok where you have the fonts popping up and there's a woman in the cockpit being filmed, and I just don't think it's appropriate for an airline to be displaying, crew members on TikTok. I don't know how to explain this. To me, I think you're taking something that is fundamentally a transfer. Like when you hop on a plane, you are putting your lives in the hands of the people flying the plane. And I think whenever something as serious as that is your entire business, every time someone boards a plane, they've purchased a ticket, but they also are, signing an unwritten contract where they're hoping that you don't kill them. I do think at all times you should maintain a level of professionalism and, seriousness, which these sort of like just TikTok videos, they just don't hold. And you guys would definitely feel the same. Maybe you do feel the same, but you would definitely feel the same if it was not an airline and if it was something else. You would feel the same if it was like I don't know, the military or something. If it was the military and, you know, it was they were posting shit where it's got colorful fonts and stuff popping up, you'd be like, well, that's certainly weird. I thought the military was a serious thing. And you'd be right.
Saving the world for the men? I don't think so. I don't think so.
Even if this information does turn out to be incorrect, the reason that people are convinced that this is an example of a prime woman moment is because there is a feeling that women have a way of avoiding accountability that men don't. And this is also encapsulated in the defences of the TBH skincare video. Has anyone been fired from Endeavour Air after the crash? How is it that someone can flip a plane and not lose their pilot's license?
Right.
Is nobody going to be held accountable for the 80-odd hospitalizations and millions of dollars lost?
Right.
Saying, oops, I'm just a silly girl,
they did lose
shouldn't
millions.
be enough to cut it when people's lives are on the line. But it isn't just in such severe
That's what I'm saying. Imagine you're literally hospitalized due to this incident, and on your hospital bed, you're scrolling TikTok, and the funniest thing happens. You get a video from the literal airline that is the cause of you being in the hospital, and it's saying, girl boss, we hire women to fly our planes, and who said that only men can fly planes, you know? We may have had one do a barrel roll on the ground with passengers who are hospitalized, with all of which actually with families. That's okay. That's okay. We're fine. It's just female empowerment. Just give it a rest. It's very much lacking self-awareness.
Circumstances where it becomes unacceptable. There is a certain way of doing things that men have to rightly endure, which women, frankly, don't. And this is a part of the privilege of being a woman in an office environment, which is rankling people so much. There's probably a technical term for this, of which I'm unaware, but it's evident that nobody pulls their punches with men like they do with women. For a man to succeed is hard, because other men do not give them the benefit of the doubt. There is no solidarity for men. As a man, you get no special consideration, no soft touch, and no compassion if the answer is no. If you, as a man, are found to be insufficient, then you just have to get back to work on yourself and do whatever you're trying to do better than you had been doing it before.
I would agree.
There is no male equivalent of the feminist movement to whine to a sympathetic society on your behalf and stack the deck in your favour. You have to improve. And if you don't improve, you don't.
Yeah, he's basically just saying you can't complain your way out of a situation that you're in. I mean, if you're broke, you can't complain your way out of it. If you are unemployed, you can't complain your way out of it, especially on a societal level, which it seems like women have been able to do. I think women have been able to create a movement that's largely made it so that society and the general standard is that if you are to be unresponsive to the whining and complaining, you're probably the problem. That's what's basically taken place. And I think with it being that case, with that being the case, I think it also makes it so that it goes the opposite way as well. So I think it's completely normalized to just be just disregarding the circumstances of a guy who is trying to get a job or, is having financial struggles. I think that's totally a real thing. I saw on Twitter earlier today, actually, it was some guy he had said something I make 75K or 70K, and basically women were saying in the replies that's just not enough money, or damn, he's broke as fuck, or whatever. And obviously women have different, there's a different variation to what kind of lifestyles they expect. I understand that, if you lived a certain way, or if you want certain expectations, especially if you're planning on having kids. I just do not think that, the kind of guy who's making that kind of money is, especially if he's not complaining or whining about not making more, is deserving of scrutiny. I think that's absolutely insane. I think if you're going to scrutinize someone for working hard and trying to make money, and they are making money, especially if it's a guy who oftentimes in this job economy is fucked, I think you really have to reevaluate yourself, I think it's crazy.
Get what?
That's why men want to live on a farm so we can leave the society behind and find a truly nice woman. I think isolationism and wanting to leave it all is a common thing. Like, I think about leaving my computer and PC for good and living in a forest, like, at least once a week. I think about, like, what if I just left everything behind, never looked back, and started a new life? And then eventually people would forget about me. No one would care after a certain while. We only have 4,000 weeks to live. On average, it's 4,000 weeks for a person. And if you die, you die. If you live, you maybe create something cool, but the chances that you're going to create maybe something that will, again, be forgotten about in 5 years max, right? And so if you get off the grid, if you go somewhere and you build a house, you live in a forest, a farm, you raise cattle, and you sustain yourself off of your own food, ultimately, people will forget about you. You'll be a memory. You'll be forgotten fast. You'll forget other people fast because that's just human nature. You're no better than your fellow man. And I don't know. I think there's something very appealing to just leaving all the noise behind and taking off and removing yourself from the perpetual nonsense of society. I think that's that's an attractive idea. Oh, but I want to overcome and conquer. I do too. But some people in the specific time we're living in just are really fucking done with the bullshit.
What you want. For many women, they don't go through this trial by fire, at least to the extent that men do, and this makes them less experienced and less accomplished than the men who would ostensibly be their professional peers. If you aren't fighting tooth and nail to get promoted and are instead shunted up the career ladder because of a privilege you received by just being a woman, then you don't know what you don't know. And when the position you've arrived in calls for expert experience par excellence, you will find yourself realizing that you're actually a fraud and you don't really know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
The male
That's
privilege
true.
that feminists lamented for so long was actually the product of survival of the fittest in the male-dominated urban jungle.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, it had to be that way.
Hyper-competitive. And many women, especially younger women, have just skipped this part of the journey to arrive at the destination.
Right.
And they wonder why flaunting this privilege has wound
is
so
annoying.
many people up.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that no women have worked hard or anything to that effect.
Okay, yeah.
But there is a general trend of this, and I'm convinced that this is at least partially behind the reaction to the TBH skincare video. There is another aspect.
I'm just going to say this. The average man out of college trying to get a job has worked 20,000 times harder than each of these women. I know that for a fact. I do not know the specifics of their situation and how long it's taken them to develop this brand, but I've talked to enough of the people that I know in my own life. I'd bet a lot of money that it's been harder for them. The amount of people that are asking me for advice and looking to find some way out of this fucking nightmare, it tells me a lot. And when I hear from these people the sort of things that they're describing from friends of mine, from not even friends, but just acquaintances, and it's how everyone's getting chewed up and spat out, I think that it's pretty clear why something like this is pissing everybody off. Like, that's obviously true. And I think if you're going to argue that it's not something, like, oh, well, they probably had to work hard, you can argue that. I think anything business related is challenging. Building something, a company, is always going to be a task that takes a lot of time, effort, blood, sweat, and tears. But it's not all built the same. And I think for men especially young men who are getting out of college, it is so challenging. Like, you have to think about it. Look back in like the 1900s. If you were a young man, you were just working. Like, going to college was like rare as fuck. It was super, you would just get out of college and you would just work, like either a family business or physical labor. Those were your two options. And, like, obviously, I'm not saying it's better or worse now. Like, it's probably better now in some senses. Like, I think there's a lot of exploitation of workers and, there's a lot of problems back then, you can imagine, with labor. And I don't need to get into it necessarily, but I think the access to jobs has become so much more scarce, and that's something that with AI is getting worse. With H-1B visa workers, it's getting worse. With especially not even just H-1B visa workers, but if you look at like globalism, key buzzword there, I mean, the fact that you no longer, as an American, like, you know, internet guy, someone who's coding or doing anything, you are now competing in your own country for a paycheck with people who don't even live in your country. And that's very fucking frustrating. You can imagine that if you get out of college and, you know, the Microsofts and companies that need coding are getting their coding from India or China or just AI, like, how are you going to feel? Like, you must feel worthless. Literally useless and worthless is how you will feel. You feel like you are disposable, like you mean nothing, you are worth nothing, you studied for nothing. You'll be self-doubting, you'll be questioning yourself. It is so fucking frustrating. And meanwhile, you have Gen Z boss in a mini.
Partially behind the reaction to the TBH skincare video. There is another aspect to the irritation towards women's frivolity in the workplace, and that's that it appears to be self-centered and ignorant. As with the many TikTok videos of nurses prattling around in hospital wards during the COVID pandemic, it seems that women engaged in these videos just aren't aware that other people are relying upon them, and they have a duty to others they ought to be fulfilling instead of making videos. The entire reason for making a dancing TikTok video is to bask in the glow of approval from strangers to inflate your ego. When you make a silly TikTok video in your work environment,
right, you
reveal to everyone that your desire for attention supersedes your diligence.
Yes.
You seem, again, like a selfish teenager who is more interested in making themselves feel good than doing the job for people you're meant to serve. Moreover, the childishness of the videos themselves has a delegitimizing effect on the offices of the people who make them. It reveals that there is no nobility
They're very
of
silly
on the part of the women doing the dances.
Completely.
If you don't take yourself seriously in a position of authority, why should anyone else? Why shouldn't those people who do take their work seriously and sincerely, and who are concerned with the dignity of their careers, not look upon you with contempt?
Immigration for cheap labor is a big issue, IMO. You can't find a job under 18 because all the teen jobs, e.g. retail, are taken by migrants. Yeah, I mean, if they're not, then they're, again, AI. Like, if you go to Taco Bell and you order, there's an AI oftentimes in certain regions that asks for your order. And it says, hey, welcome to Taco Bell. What can I get you to eat? And that's another issue. But you're completely right. Like, there's this idea that low-skill labor as a descriptor for a type of work is a myth. Like, they say it's a capitalist myth. You know, all labor takes skill. Well, I mean, yeah, some people call it unskilled labor or low skill. Low skill and unskilled, to me, they mean the same thing. It's something that requires very little mental or physical commitment. And so low skill labor would be just like putting the fries in the bag, for lack of a better example. And so people who do not know English very well from another country, who are not college educated, can just come here and put the fries in the bag, when, you know, that's something that oftentimes like an American teen could get as a part-time job. And so you're completely right. Like, I think they say that they're doing the jobs that Americans don't want to do. And in some cases that is true. I'm not going to deny that. Like, absolutely, you can't argue with the facts. Like, that is a fact. But if you look at certain things, like you said, retail, or I think some of the service industry stuff is absolutely being taken by migrants, when there is a demand for, younger teens and stuff to get that sort of experience for a resume and stuff, especially in an era where your resume needs to be stacked as fuck. Yeah. There's such a difference between there's such differences in skill when it comes to labor. Lol, my grandfather was a coal miner and I served sandwiches. Like, I mean, either way, you should not have to worry, or it shouldn't even be factored into the data or the workplace statistics that because of immigrants, or I should say illegal immigrants specifically, because immigrants, like, they're legal. Because of illegal immigrants, that there is a greater demand that there is a lesser demand for native-born citizens. Like, that's insane. You know, if you're ever to look at a job and the demand for that job is lower because of illegal immigrants, then you have a serious problem. You just do. That's insane. That's called replacement.
I think this is the social and professional context in which the TBH skincare video hit the internet, and a major reason why people reacted very poorly to it. This kind of silly, girlish behavior rankles that part of the male mind which considers it
The bigger problem is these businesses that hire cheap labor undercut and extort people. Yeah, that also does happen. If people are undocumented and they need a job, their employer is maybe incentivized, but certainly able to fuck these people over, like, because they can just hold their job over their head and kind of get away with a lot of mistreatment 100%, yeah. But I don't know if that's a bigger problem than, you know, native-born citizens having jobs that might be being taken by illegal immigrants. Great replacement? No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying if we look at an instance of like a low-skilled job that might be taken by a teen, a native-born American teenager, and it's oftentimes like not available or there's high competition due to illegal immigration, then that job has been occupied when it shouldn't have been occupied, and that guy kind of got replaced. I think that's what we're talking about in that specific scenario. Makes sense, but wouldn't things become more expensive if they didn't hire illegal immigrants? Well, yeah, I think if you look at certain industries, that's absolutely the case. And I said this before, I'm necessarily saying that, you know, like a kid who wants to get a job at McDonald's or something like that, in certain regions, like this just is the case, or maybe Target's a better example, or I don't know, but it should never be a problem. Yeah. Let's see. What did you say there? Makes sense, but wouldn't things become more expensive if they didn't hire illegal immigrants? In some cases, yeah, like for certain things, yes, absolutely. But for certain things, no, not at all, you know? Like if you're getting paid a wage at McDonald's, like that wage is going to get paid like regardless. Bro's repeating himself. If I repeated myself, editor, cut that out.
Important to do things for other people and not just yourself. And really, this is the entire problem with the girl boss trend. When men do things, they do them for the thing itself and not for the social status that the thing brings with it. In fact, in many cases, it's not evident that there is any social status to be gained from such a thing. But the girl boss is attempting to attain something someone else established, not for the sake of the thing or for doing it well, but for the status it provides. The fundamental motivation of the girl boss is selfishness and solipsism. It doesn't matter if the person doing the job isn't good. It doesn't matter if someone else doing it would be better or has a more valid claim to it. Mm-hmm. It's just about satisfying the vanity of the girl boss, right, no matter what damage she does to the people around her. Finally, there is a phenomenon which my friend Dave Green calls the female group chat brain. This is where groups made up exclusively of women have a tendency to attempt not to resolve problems by facing the issues frankly, right, but instead attempt to ameliorate or dismiss them entirely, okay, by telling each other pleasant fictions to protect the feelings of the women of the problem, and to elevate the woman's status by allowing her to claim to be a victim.
This is not a problem.
Can you explain how this is different from the Great Replacement theory? So the difference is that when you're talking about the jobs market and employment, that's its own discussion. And the Great Replacement is more about immigration and demographics of a country overall, not just like the demographics of the workforce. It's just like who is in the country, like what type of person, not, you know, what type of person is at McDonald's versus, yeah.
Problem with women, it's a problem with the social network comprised entirely of women.
So this guy kind of yaps for a bit. I'm not really interested in listening to him, but I want to hear the conclusion.
In work environments which naturally excluded women and prevented them from getting ahead by not pandering to their feelings of victimhood. Right. In the way that men do not pander to feelings of victimhood for other men.
For other men. Yeah, so I think essentially the point has kind of been made. I think people are able to understand why the video is so hated, and I'm not a fan of it, all right? That's what I'm saying.